Hi everyone, welcome to this new video, and in this video we are going to understand how we can do a channel update. And specifically in the channel we are going to update the batch size, and we will be just updating the batch size from the default value, which is 10 transactions per batch to 50 transactions per batch. So let's see how we can achieve this. So here I'm in my Fabric Samples advanced repository, and there we have a folder called test network, which contains the configuration file for running up a basic Fabric network with 2 peer organization and 1 ordering organization. And let's start the network here. So I'll do network.sh up and then create channel, and then I'm going to pass the channel name as test channel. So we are going to create a channel with name test channel, and this is going to get created with batch size as 10 transactions. Okay, so my network is coming up, and we can see that the order has joined the channel, and now peers are trying to join the channel. So our network is up with a channel called test channel, and it has 2 peers, 1 peer for each peer organization, and then we have 1 orderer for order organization. And if we go to the configuration files here, there is a folder called config.txt.yaml. Inside this, so this is the config.txt.yaml file, and this file contains the channel details as well, like what should be the configuration for a given channel. And since we create the channel, so if we go to, if I search for batch size, here you can see that the max message count is currently set as 10, and we are going to update it to 50. You can just always find the right parameter for your network, but for the demonstration we are just going to make it 50 as a value. So let's see how we can do this. So since our network is up, and let me set some environment variables so that I can run commands. So the first thing that I'll be setting up is the channel. So I've set the channel name as test channel because this is the channel that we are going to update. And then let's set the new batch size. So the new batch size that I want to have is 50. So I'll just create an environment variable, and the new batch size is now 50. And we'll just update the channel, and we'll use these environment variables. Now let's set up some environment variable for the peer node so that we can fetch the latest configuration block. So I'll use some environment variable, and these environment variables are pointing to my peer 0 of org1. So I'll just run this, and now let's try to fetch the channel from the order. So we are going to fetch the config block of the channel, which contains the configuration details, and then we'll try to update the channel and send the transaction. So the command to fetch the channel is peer channel fetch, and then we have to pass the config because we want to get the config block, and then we are giving the output file name. So the output will be stored with config_block.pb, and then we are giving the order endpoint and the channel name as well. Now if I just run this, you can see that we received the block number 2, and which means that channel fetch was successful, and we can verify it here as well. So if we go to VS Code, here we can see that our config block is present here. Now we have to convert this config block to the JSON format so that we can update this this particular channel. So I'll just use the config.txt tool, and there is a function called proto decode, and we'll use that function to decode this protobuf format file to the JSON file. Let me clear this. So the command is config.txt proto decode. We have to give the input, which is the protobuf file. Then we have to give the output as well, and the output is our JSON. So I'll just run this, and you will be able to see that we have a new file with name config_block.json. Let's verify this. So if we go here, we have a file called config_block.json, and this is the channel configuration. And let's see the batch settings here. So you can see that the max message count is 10 here because this is the default configuration that was used when we created the channel. Now we have to update this property, and instead of 10 we have to make it 50. Now what I'll do, I'll just extract some part of this JSON file that we see, and I'll put it into one new file called config.json. That is needed because we want to simplify things. So I'll just so what I'm doing, I'm just reading this config_block.json file, and I'm just pointing to data.config property from here. So if we go to this config file, let me close this. So if we see, data, then dot data. So I'm doing the data dot data, then the zeroth index because it's an array. So I'm just pointing to the zeroth index. Then I'm just accessing payload, then again data, and then config. So payload, and then data, and then config. So this particular section is what we are trying to extract and store in one new file called config.json. So as soon as I run this, I'll have a new file with name config.json, and this just contains the extracted details only, not the entire JSON. Okay, so now we are good so far, and now we have to just create a JSON path, and that will help us in editing up or modifying the file easily. But you can modify the file directly by visiting that file and just update the property directly there. So I'll just set the JSON path in one variable. So I've set the channel group dot proper channel underscore group, then groups, then order, then value. So this is the place where my channel or the max message count is present. It's same here. So if you see groups, then we have order, then we have order groups, and inside order groups, inside order, then values. So inside order, then we have a okay. So let's go. Okay, so let's see this property. How we're trying to access this property. So channel group, then dot groups. So channel group dot groups, and then after dot groups we are looking for orderer, then groups, then orderer, and then we are looking for values. So inside orderer there will be a value section as well. This is the value section, and then we have this property called max message count. So we are directly referencing the property, and we'll update this property with the help of this particular path variable that we have. So now what I'll do, I'll just simply go ahead and update this property from this file called config.json, and I'll store this everything into a new file called modified config.json. So this is what I have done. I have just set the new batch size, which was set as 50 initially, and then we are setting up in this particular file, which is config.json, and then we are storing that entire modified thing into modified config.json. So if we see it, we have a file called modified config.json, and if we just see the batch, the max message count, now it's set as 50. Again, you can do this manually as well, but here I'm doing with the help of GQ command to make things more simplified. Okay, so now we have two configuration. One is the original configuration and one is the modified configuration. And now we'll just convert these configuration back to the protobuf format, and then we'll compute the update, like the delta part, and then we can submit the transaction. So I'll just encode my this JSON file, which is config.json, back to protobuf format, and then I'll also convert my modified config.json to the protobuf format. So these two are converted, and now we'll have the two new files, config.pb and modified config.pb. We can just verify it from here as well. So now you can see that modified underscore config.pb is here, and then config.pb is also here. Okay, so now we have both the configuration back in the protobuf format, and now we can simply go ahead and compute the update part, like what's the actual update that is going to happen, and then we can submit that update. So there is a command called config.txlater compute update, and this is going to help us in computing up the update part. So I'll just run this command, and this is going to store the output in one file called final update. It's a protobuf format again, and we'll convert this protobuf format again just to verify what's the actual update that is going to happen. So again, we are going to use the config.txlater proto decode command. We'll pass the input and the output. So input is final update.pv, and the output that we want is final update.json. This is the output file that I have given here. Now if we go to my VS Code, we will be able to see final update.json is here. And if you see here specifically, we have now read set and write set. So read set is completely empty, and write set is what we want to update. An interesting thing to note here is that if you see that for every object that is there in this file, they have we have a field called version, and if you see for this particular section where we try to do the update, the version is changed as 1, right? So every time when you do any update to a specific part in the channel configuration, the version will get incremented every time. So if you see this particular section is not getting updated, that's why the version is 0 here. But if you see the nearest version to this particular value that you are updating, it's incremented by 1. Okay, so now we have the final update that is available, and now we have to just add the channel headers. And once the channel headers are added, then we have to simply sign this transaction using the order log, because we are making the channel update for the orderer, and that's why this transaction has to be signed by the ordering organization. So let's add these channel headers, and then we can finally submit the transaction. So again, I'll use some help with the JQ command. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding this particular piece, which is payload, then header, and the channel header I'm adding to the existing final update.json file. So if we go here, and we should have one more file, which is header in envelope.json. And this is the exact same file that we saw, like the final update.json, but we have added this additional property called payload, and everything is now kept inside the data property. The same thing was done here, and you can see that the config update part is what we are reading from the final update.json, and we're just setting it into a new file. Okay, so now we have the JSON file with all the required headers and the update part. Now we can simply encode this file back to the protobuf format, and then we can submit this channel update. So I'll go here, and let's convert it back to with the help of proto encode function. We'll give the input as JSON file and the output as the protobuf. So when I run this, now we have a file called final update in envelope.pv. Again, we can see this file here, final update in envelope.pv. And now we can use the ordering organization to sign this update. So in order to do the signing, we'll have to set the environment variable so that our peer CLI is pointing to the right organization, and then we can submit the update. So I'll now set up the environment variable for my order organization, and let me just clear this first. So now what you can see here, that I'm pointing to the MSP config path of the order org, and this I'm pointing to the admin user of this particular organization. Then I'm setting the core peer address as localhost 7050, because this is the place where my ordering service is running. And then I'm setting the MSP ID as the order MSP. Now once these properties are set, now we can simply send the update. So I'll use this command peer channel update, and then I'll update the channel. So let's update the channel. So the command is peer channel update. We have to give the file, and then we have to give the channel name. We have to give the ordering service endpoint. And since all the components are running with the TLS enabled mode flag, so we'll just pass the TLS, and then we have to give the CA file as well. Now let's try to send this transaction, and we can see that the transaction was submitted successfully. And now let's verify the logs as well. So I can just do docker logs of the order node. And here we can see that a block was committed successfully. So a new block was committed, and which means that the transaction was successful, and we can verify it as well. So if we try to fetch the channel again, we should see that the new update property available in the channel configuration. So let's verify this. So I'll fetch the channel again, and I'll again fetch the config block only. Let's clear this, and let's use the same command which we used initially to fetch the channel block. So we got the channel block, and now I'll convert this channel block to the JSON format so that we can read the new value. Now we have a file with name config underscore block.json. This is the new file that got created. And if we just go to this file config block.json, we can search for block or batch. It was batch. So here we can see that the max message count is updated as 50. So we are able to clearly see that we are able to update the channel with the help of few commands that we saw. And this way you can update other properties in the channel as well. You can update, maybe if you want to update let's say batch timeout as well. So this property also can be updated using the same way. And always remember, if you are trying to update the order settings, like here we try to update the batch size, so you will have to always sign the transaction with the help of ordering orgs. So in this particular case, we have just only one ordering org. That's why we directly submitted up the update. But if you have multiple organization, like the ordering organization, then you have to sign the transaction from all those orgs, and then finally you can do the channel update. So this was it for this video. Hope you like this video, and if you did like this video, then please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.